Good morning to the world. Well, it's good afternoon here in the Eastern time zone, but it is time for us to have a little time to talk about office hours, where at PayProTech we bring some of the best minds in our, industry and talk about what are things that are practical for our partners as they're serving merchants across this great land, the United States of America. Well, I do that by bringing in two of our trainers that help us understand what is really going on when we're talking to our merchants. And on the top of your screen from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, is Jenny Rickle. Jenny, how are you and how was your Memorial Day? I haven't even been able to ask yet this week. It's been a busy week. How was your Memorial
Right.
Day? I hope it was a great time.
It was great. Yeah. I mean, around here, everybody's graduating. So we went to some family barbecues and some friends and gave those congratulations. Of course, I went out for a run in the mountains, which is always my favorite thing to do. So I am a happy camper here in Colorado.
Awesome. And in the bottom right-hand side of your screen from Warsaw, Indiana, about 2 hours north of me, Mr. Mike Stetzel. Mike, how was your Memorial Day? Are you ready for the first day of June next Monday? We're going to start. I like when we start months on a Monday. It just kind of feels like, hey, we get to
It's perfect.
experience the beginning of the month right off in the first business day of the month. It just makes it all work together.
It is. It's awesome. And then we go count the Fridays and Saturdays to see how volume's going to tumble out. But yeah, definitely prepared for June 1st. Excited. Excited. Had a good Memorial Day weekend. It was a busy Memorial Day weekend, but lots of fun stuff and a lot of good things got accomplished.
All right. So today we are going to talk about specifically some pain points, some what I'll call headaches that our merchants often are talking to our partners. And so I actually went to Gemini, my good friend who is an AI, and said, what are the top 10 pain points, headaches that merchants have? In fact, I'll read the exact prompt just so I give you all credit. So what are the top most common problems that are cited by merchants about their merchant processing, credit card processing, or payments? And so I came up with 10 of these, and then we're going to kind of respond. Well, what should our partners be thinking about when merchants say this to them, and kind of think through this? So number one is high and hidden fees, and we hear this all the time. There are that there are little places. Let's be honest. There are so many different types of fees. I don't even know them all in our industry, and they can pop up randomly on a given month. And we get this thing. How would you respond and help our partners understand how to respond to their merchants? And they say, man, we have all these fees and all these hidden fees. And then what would be our solution to kind of our aspirin to this headache that a lot of our
Yeah.
merchants are feeling?
I
Who's
think
one?
education.
Yep, Jenny,
Oh,
go.
I'll go
Go for
ahead.
it, Jenny.
Good talk. I think education on the sales partners part is really important to understand what types of fees and rates are being, billed out, especially on your Schedule A. Take a look at those. Especially if you're using a cost plus pricing structure, you have to remember there is a monthly minimum requirement. There is a monthly basic service fee, and then every single car type is going to have additional fees on that. So when you present this to a customer, as again, your knowledge and your experience will help you best explain this to a customer and really understand what they should expect, like set those expectations. I feel a nice resolution for this is putting on a flat rate pricing structure, because then you don't have so many variants between the different car types and the different fees that are there. On a flat rate pricing structure, which is also part of our dual pricing structure, it's a flat rate per transaction. No additional monthly fees are going to be charged, and just being aware of what might come up, such as the annual regulatory fee, which we always send notifications for. So I really do, again, education, knowledge, and then I really do feel like the flat rate pricing structure is a more simplified way to help a business not incur any hidden fees that might pop up.
Awesome. Mike, you want anything you add to this conversation on with all these hidden fees? It's what we hear all the time.
Yeah, we're having a pivot episode today. We were planning on a guest and unfortunately that didn't work out. But so we've only had a little bit of time to review these, but I thought of several of these items that Gemini has generated for us, especially this one, as a way to get a new merchant. So you're talking to a potential merchant, and they say, "Oh, you know what? I already pass on 3.5%. I'm fine." Well, I certainly understand. And instead of having to say, "Oh, we can do it for cheaper," because that's what we don't want to do, we want to sell value. You know, I understand you're already doing this program. The one thing about the way I sell our program, Mr. Merchant, is there are no other fees. When we say that your payment processing fees will be covered by your customers, that is what we mean. it might be helpful if I could still take a look at your statement and see if there's other fees that you're being charged that may have popped up since you signed your original agreement. So you're helping this potential merchant to switch to you doing the same program because you're watching out for their best interests. So that's the way I looked at that one. So that's one I know that a
Yeah.
lot of people use is, hey, let's take a look at the statement anyway. There's always things that pop up, and it's true. We all know that.
Yeah. And somewhat our whole system, not set up and not created by Paprotech or even any of our processors or banks that we work with. It's the industry as a whole is set up to be a little bit confusing. And, from the acquiring side to the issuing side to what the merchants are doing, we have there are gateway fees and transaction fees and international fees, and there's all these things that go in. And I would say my first solution would be when this is try to drive the conversation to flat rate, because at the end of the day, we're not in control of all those fees. Amex could create another fee tomorrow, spin it up, throwing it on our interchange table, and it will hit our merchants. At the end of the day, what we want to do is make it easier for the merchants to provide value and drive that conversation from hidden costs and hidden fees to value and simplification. And that's where flat rate comes in. And one of the things I've noticed, guys, is even what a lot of our partners are doing, I encourage them to do, is if you have a large volume merchant with a high average ticket, a lot of times you don't want to get into, you got to find different ways in transactions, and you can go to a flat rate even if they're not on differential pricing and still be very profitable. I've watched Billy work with a lot of our offices, and we'll see, their average transaction is $5,000 to $25,000, and we can get into flat rates that are way lower than we think. And it's not just 3% and have still 50 or 60 basis points of profit to be able to share and be fair. And when you go a flat rate, you're not going to see all these transaction fees because you're going to create that simplified statement, which just makes life a little easier. What do you guys think about that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's so much easier. And then again, that all you have to really worry about is the fees that that will come up. Our monthly premium access fee at $29.95 after 60 days. Be aware of that. The annual regulatory fee, be aware of that. But like Nate was saying, all those additional interchange costs that do come up from Amex, MasterCard, Visa, the merchant is going to see those on a flat rate pricing program. So I feel that truly is going to be a really great way to help with the merchant and not have any hidden fees come up.
Love it. All right. Next one is one I don't think we've ever talked about specifically on the show, and it is the issue of tip when it comes to dual pricing and specifically surcharging, right, where the tip is after the differential is already presented, and thus creating more processing fees just specifically on transacting that tip. And so it causes a little bit of headache, but part of that is it always goes back to communication and understanding. Jenny, can you kind of walk us through what this issue is and why this making sure we're not being fee free, but we're taking away a majority of your fees, and you're going to still, see a little bit on those, tips, which are, anywhere from 15 to 25% or 30%, I guess, of the transaction. But a lot of times in a POS, that's after you're not creating that extra differential to be able to offset. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, 100%. I like to deal with round numbers. So everybody just bear with me, right? Let's say you're out to lunch and your ticket is $100. So the typical process of that is that with our dual pricing, the price with a credit card, if you're using our standard 4%, the total would be 104. And then a tip is left after that, right? They want to tip their server. So at the end of the day, when they adjust their tips, there's an additional processing fee on that tip transaction. So truly the cash discount is helping offset the fees for the original base transaction, that $100, but it's not helping offset the amounts per the tip. So there's a few workarounds with that, depending upon how the business wants to present it to their customers. One of the easiest and simple ways is going to be tip at the time of sale, right? So they have the base amount, and then it says, would you like to add a tip? They add a tip, and then we can go ahead and add our surcharge, our cash, our dual pricing on the tip amount with the base amount instead of just doing it off the base amount alone. So we actually see that a lot. And again, it really is going to be, what is the conversation? How does the business want to present that to their customer?
Yep. I think in being open and upfront ahead of time, instead of the merchant being surprised on that first
Mm-hmm.
monthly statement, and they're looking at it and going, man, you told me this was zero fee processing and I paid this much because of these tip
Hmm.
adjustments, and getting through that conversation, because there are ways, like Jenny talked, to handle. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, I don't think so. I'll just repeat what she said, that just having that conversation with them up front
All
instead of,
right.
like you said, when that next statement
Yeah.
comes out.
So I'm going
And
to
for
read. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Well, I was just going to say for quick service restaurants and smaller ticket restaurants, it is really simple just to add that time, the tip at the time of sale. I totally understand that if you're in a fine dining restaurant and perhaps you don't want to have that conversation. So it's all about the approach. There are ways to offset this, or again, it's going to, depending upon the average ticket, it may only be a little bit to help the fees off the tip, might only be a little bit to help prevent that conversation with the customer. So options are definitely going to be there for the business owner and how they want to approach it.
Awesome. All right. So what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to read through the other 8, and then I'm going to let Jenny and Mike choose which one each that we can talk about. A lot of these we've talked about in other office hours at different times where we talk about the whole subject line. But here's the other 8. Number 3 was slow settlement timelines, meaning 2 to 3 business days. We know in our paper tech world, we're always on next day funding. And then, depending on the weekend, obviously Friday. This is a great week to talk about. Sometimes you got to wait for that bank to actually put that deposit in until Tuesday. Thank you, a Memorial Day or Labor Day or other holidays when that happens. But certainly that is a headache a lot of merchants mentioned. Sophisticated AI-driven fraud. That is certainly one we see out there now more and more. And it's not just the friendly fraud, which we talked about, and those chargebacks that are people actually come in and just charging back something they actually purchased online, in person, all kinds of that friendly fraud. But we're seeing now and more that's why you want to be in a secure system, because the not only is AI helping all of us do a lot of really cool things and build things faster, but it's also making the bad guys have the same tools to go the other way. And so there's some AI hacks that are pretty sophisticated, being able to create username and passwords for online pieces, being able to I've seen actually making over the phone orders where they get a hold of the cards, they're calling in and doing a card not present with AI voices calling into the business and doing that, and then running the transactions. I don't even know what they win out of that, because they're not usually getting the product, but they're just proving that that card number works instead of just hitting 1,000 card numbers on an e-commerce site all at once. Outdated or glitchy hardware, certainly one we hear. Integration headaches, the wonderful things of the third-party integrations just not working. Suddenly, I knew this actually, the API of DoorDash went down last week. And so all of
Hmm.
our restaurants that were looking and using DoorDash, the API was down. Wasn't Quick's issue, wasn't Paradise issue or Hot Sauce issue or any of the third parties we work with. It was DoorDash's issue, but nothing you can do. And those are headaches when we're chaining all these things together. The complex compliance requirements and all our favorite 3 letters, PCI. Merchants do complain about that, don't they? Number 8, come on, boys. Ladies and gentlemen, this should never be something we hear from our paper tech partners, but poor customer support. But certainly that is what they hear about merchants. Lack of support for alternative payments. And we've been bringing some of those new ideas and thoughts into our world, especially with our P line, being able to do some of the things with some of our Bitcoin and other choices, being able to use some of the BNPL pieces out there. And lastly, the difficult reconciliation. Team, what are of those 8 that I just read, did one of them stand out to you? And I always go ladies first. So Mike, you get longer to choose, but Jenny gets to choose first. Jenny, what is one of those stand out to you?
I would say poor customer service, just because when I talk to new partners and existing partners, I really like to shine a light on that we are really here to make everybody's life easier. So if you please stay in contact with their merchants. So if they're having troubles, or even use your portal or the emails so you can see if they're having any troubles with their terminal or their funding, reach out to us. We can certainly help. If there is a terminal that keeps on having the same issue, but our tech support team is saying, no, we won't swap it, please reach out to us. We'll see what we can do. Maybe they need a different terminal. If somebody has some funds that are being held and they feel like they're banging their head up against a wall because they want their money and they don't understand why it's not there, reach out to us. We can help. We can reach out to the teams, get it escalated, find out what's going on. So instead of having the businesses just rely on our standard customer support and technical service, reach out to us. Let us help, and we can help ease the pain, provide some aspirin, as Nate was saying, and let people just get on with their day. Because really, the business owners, the last thing that they really want to think about is their credit card machine and if it's working or not. They just want it to work. They want their money. And that's really where we're here to help everybody.
Perfect. And Mike Stetzel, how about you? What is your chosen of those headaches that I read?
You know, um, probably the PCI. You know, the fact that we don't charge for PCI when a merchant's using any sort of flat rate, including Edge, that is a huge and has been a huge plus since we started it. So that means only people using Interchange Plus pricing will be charged for that. Secondly, remember that any of the hardware that we ship natively, such as our Ingenico terminals or any of the Pay Anywhere devices, we do that PCI compliance for the merchant. So there's no cost and no effort. If you use a Deja Vu or a Valor Paytech or a gateway or point of sale, our PCI team will send you instructions as to what you need to do when the time comes. So again, this communication piece to let your merchant know not to ignore that email, that they want to pay attention to that. And then we have a PCI team in house. And if it becomes a further difficulty, we can actually contact our merchants, can contact the PCI vendor, and they are typically going to be the one um, that can get right to the heart of the problem and get you the help you need. So again, it all comes down to asking for help. As a side note to that, talking about flat rate merchants, Dan J from OK said, do you do a periodic review for flat rate merchants? So in our situation, Dan, with anybody that's on a flat rate or Edge, regardless of what that flat rate is, we've never raised a flat rate at this point in time. Um, Interchange Plus rates do change based upon industry and costs rising in the industry, things like that. Two things can happen. One, you can always have us put that pricing back where it was, or you can always ask for a review of a merchant if you feel like the costs are higher than they were, or if they complain. Let's say you got somebody in at 60 or 70 basis points because they were new to the processing world. We got a little bit higher profit, and now they start getting competitive offers. Hey guys, would you please take a look at my merchant statement and do an analysis for me? We're happy to do that, and we do it quite often. So thank you for the time for the second question. Back to you in the studio, Nate.
There we go. Back home as we're all back on the screen together. At the end of the day, when we're throwing this together, I was trying to think of things that are helpful for our partners to start engaging with their merchants and thinking through that are common across all of it. And just make sure that you have all those answers. And you should, whether you use some of our chat tools and Google, or even better yet, being in a regular contact with the relationship manager and trainer, and make sure you're up to date on solving these headaches. They are headaches that all of our merchants are having. And when you're the one who's coming in and putting yourself right there and able to, connect, be the problem solver, it will set you apart in the industry. It makes you the person they call when they need help. And then you become the person that's coming alongside of them and helping them thrive at their business. Remember, we're not the heroes in the story. We're not swooping in and being the superheroes and I'm going to fix all your problems, merchants. We're the person that comes alongside of them, guides them, helps them, and makes them the hero of their story. Because ultimately, in order for us all to make more money, they need to make more money. They're the most important part of the chain. Then you're the most important part of our contact, you as our sales partners and our wonderful agents across the United States. And then PayProTech only grows, and this is how all this ecosystem works. And if we focus on the people that are the most important, which is those merchants who are processing dollars, and then they, of course, need to be working on their customers, we're going to have a great growth, and we're going to be moving up and to the right, and we're going to see continual portfolio transformation. Mike, Jenny, hey, we made it, which I went to a blank screen. We talked about some things. I'm going to have Jenny give us our closing word here in a minute. And Jenny, I'm going to do a quick tease, making sure people know that coming up on June 8th, that is 1 week from this coming Monday, at 7 p.m. at the bungalow at the Cadillac Hotel that's right next to the Fontainebleau where the SEA conference is going on. We're hosting a dinner. A good portion of our Paprotech team will be there. Danny will be there. Jason Lee will be there. Jenny will be there. Billy will be there. Emily will be there. Paul, Josh, and myself. And we want to see you there. I know that we've already bumped up our count already because we've had multiple people. Bring as many of your partners and teammates and people as you want. Bring your spouses, and we want to hang out. We're going to be. I wanted to make sure that people knew we are going to be standing in the sand most of the time, so come dressed for that. This is a beach party at the bungalow. It's a little tiki bar. It's going to be awesome. We picked out the food yesterday. The drinks are going to be great. I hear that there's going to be an espresso martini bar. Say
Ooh.
that. Can't ask for much more. Jenny, closing words as we close out this for the last office hours of May 2026.
Yeah, you guys, June is right around the corner. Summer months are here. This is the time to be rocking and rolling, and we're here to help. Paprotech is here for you. So whatever headaches that they might encounter, whether it's customer support, pricing, equipment, just general questions, PCI, we are here to help. Reach out to your relationship manager. We're happy to schedule a training session if you need to know more about any of these information, especially about pricing and equipment. We are here to help. So let's get moving and grooving, and so excited. Hope I can see a lot of you guys out in Florida. I'm very, very excited. So until next time.
This has been another Office Hours. On behalf of Mike Stetzel, Jenny Rickel, I'm Nate Manahan. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
See ya.